But there has been discussions between UDOT, Park City, Heber, Midway about funding a study to look at the potential for transit within Wasatch County. And this is a copy of an interlocal agreement that would, if we move forward, would kind of be the basis for that study. But first, I'm just to briefly talk about what rural transit really can look like. You go forward, Tony. And really, rural transit is quite different from what you think of when you think of, say, UTA. Go forward one. A first example is Uinta County. They have their own transit agency. As you can imagine, it's relatively infrequent. They make long trips, but they do serve a population that doesn't have opportunities, and it provides a lot of benefit to them moving forward. Another smaller one, but maybe a little more robust, would be Cache Valley Transit. Again, that's a little bit more of an urban kind of system, but there is obviously a lot of rural population they serve. Next one. Maybe. Yeah. There we go. If you've been to St. George, you've probably seen SunTran. Again, a little bit more of a urban transit system, but one that serves, again, a pretty rural population. Go to the next slide. Obviously, Park City Transit and UTA, you can just click through these a little bit. UTA serves Park City, or at least takes travelers to Park City and Kimball Junction. Go to the next one. Some County Transit, they have their own system, obviously. Keep going to the next one. They do have a Camas commuter line that goes out to Camas to bring people in and out of Camas from the Kimball Junction and Park City area. And so if we're talking about transit in Wasatch County and we want to study what it would be, these are some of the questions that if we put together a study, we'd really be wanting to, maybe not questions, but things we'd like to find out. One, first we want to create a list of interested stakeholders to participate in the process. We want to gather data about the community. What are the travel patterns? Where do people want to go in Wasatch County? Where do they want to get to? We call those origins and destinations. We can potentially conduct surveys and public outreach to gauge interest and desire, not only to use transit, but where they would like to go, where are they at, where they'd like to go, which would obviously morph into, okay, well, we could come up with identified desired transit routes, what modes would best serve them. We don't need the big, huge coach buses potentially, but are smaller buses, or what does that mode look like, and what is the demand for them? And then, you know, a next step, depending on what the study would say, is, well, we can prepare ourselves for maybe a potential one-year pilot program where we try transit in the area for a year and just see how it works. But what we've got before you that I've handed out is just kind of a brief draft interlocal agreement identifying who is in, who wants to contribute and participate in that. MAG is participating, $5,000. Heber City, $2,000. Midway, $1,000. Park City is contributing. We spoke just yesterday with UTA, and you know, one of the things that we would want to do with this study is not just talk about transit back and forth to, say, Summit County, but also look at, well, what would transit look like? Is there a demand to go down the canyon to Utah County? And UTA is happy to participate, to look at that as well. And so you know, as far as we here at MAG are concerned, we're here to help facilitate what you want. This is not something we're pushing. We're just here to help facilitate and do this, help you create your own vision, do what you want to do. Tony, I think that's pretty much the last slide. You want to go to the next one? But now, I guess, turn the time over to the body for comments, thoughts. I guess the next step would be, you know, talking about this interlocal agreement and moving that forward if that's our desire. Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
How many, if any, of those other communities that you showed did a transit study that UDOT participated in? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, what's an estimated time from the start of the transit study until the transit is in place?
So I can't tell you for certain how many people have done studies because I don't have specific knowledge, but my intuition says each and every one of them did major studies because it is an investment in time and resources to create a transit system or to run these buses. And so people don't jump into that very lightly. As far as the timing is concerned, I would assume a transit study of this nature would take 6 months to complete, and then the results of that study will essentially drive how fast the buses are out in the neighborhoods, and that could be, that could be anywhere from a few months to a few years. It all depends on the nature of the study, the results we see, and where we can derive funding to do it.
And part of the issue was, since it's the Park City transportation planning staff that would do the study, their schedules, and they were going to look into it, but they think just once they get started, a 6-month thing, so it would be over a year before a pilot could start. Yeah,
and I believe it's not necessarily Park City staff doing it, but that they have a consultant that would be doing it.
Those two girls were doing part of it.
So they were providing some of the data
Some of the
and
data.
some of the
Yeah.
information, but, right, and support, yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of important to point out, it's not
Yeah,
Park
it's
City
not
staff
the whole
doing it,
thing.
it is
But
their
they had to
consultant.
they had to check something before they could tell us, because we asked for a time frame, and they had
Right.
to check on whatever their schedule was
Right.
before they could get whatever.
Yeah, the actual study probably won't take too awful long to do, it's just when can they queue it up is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's.
Great.
Not having read this on the interlocal, I don't know whether it specifies. I'm glad you mentioned the Heber to Provo route,
Yeah,
because I highly suspect the transit study will show that that's a much more popular and needed route than the Park City.
and that's, we don't necessarily know that, but it definitely should be something to look at.
Another question I hope the transit study will look at, this from a radio broadcast on KPCW February 7th, they're talking about roughly 30% of Park City's workforce comes from Wasatch County. I would hope the study will look and say what part of that 30% are workers, construction workers and so forth, that would not take a transit because they can't load all of their equipment onto the bus. And so what is it? I mean, Park City has a real need for this. There's a couple. Their transportation system is gridlocked. They were able to, the counties worked with Park City or talked to Park City for a long time about this. The studies we've done, US 40, with the growth projected in the county, is still good for another 50 years. We don't have a traffic problem between here and Park City. Park City has a traffic problem. And this transit system would help them in two ways. Number one, eliminate perhaps some of that congestion and provide an easier way for their low-income workers to live in Wasatch County and get to work in Park City. We need to look at that very carefully as we go forward with this.
Ben, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I'd argue that we probably have a need for it here in Heber, Wasatch County. Heber City is doing a general plan update, and we're doing a lot of research. And we came across a study in 2016 that suggests that 4 out of 5 Heber residents work somewhere else other than Heber. The study goes on to state that most of those work in Salt Lake County, followed by Park City, and then Utah County, interestingly enough.
I have that study.
Had you? Yep, excellent. It's 2016. And so I think there's probably a need here, and I think the study would really try to flesh out what that need is.
Sure, and I mean, you have issues with US 40, obviously, that we're dealing with, Main Street, and think about people, say in Midway, that want to go to Heber City for whatever, there's a great opportunity for them to not have to be on the road. And so as far as that kind of, your comment, I think, goes to origins and destinations and the surveys of who will ride it and who will not. And that's part of the study that will flesh try and
That's what
flush
I'm
that
saying, I
out.
hope that's part
And I
of it.
think, again, I think the study will be extremely helpful. I initially reached out because we had a need in Midway for folks to be able to get over there to ski, that were coming up here without renting a car or whatever, and learned very quickly that you can't provide this service to help a private entity, right? But it could become a side benefit of all of this. Also, we have Renee Berkeley here, who has done a lot of work with folks in our community that struggle getting to doctor's appointments and work and things like that, who are in a lower income, and this could benefit. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the study says. And Renee, maybe you would want to say one or two things. I know you've got to leave, but I'd love to hear from you.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we've been studying the data in the county for about a year and a half. We're the service pillar of the Wasatch County Foundation. And we've discovered a lot of issues in the county. It's a beautiful place to live, but we have issues. First of all, if you're concerned about the cost of this, I sent some grant information to Matt just yesterday, and there's wonderful money out there to provide buses and infrastructure for communities that want this. I have the privilege of working in Heber Center Stage Pantry every week as a volunteer. And every resident that comes in, I have a discussion with them about their challenges. And transportation is a huge one. We have about 12.3% of our families living here in poverty. And when we talk about the commuters, we have about 8,000 that head east. We have about 3,000 that come up from Orem, and the rest are circling around here. That include Park City. And I frequently hear, I have enough money for gas for work this week. Or my car's broken down, and I'm going to lose my job unless I find somebody else who can take me to work. They just don't have the assets and the resources to always get to where they need to go. Having lived in Heber here almost 10 years, I'm alarmed at the 750-some tankers that come barreling through on 40 every day. That is not safe, especially for a lot of the people who don't have cars and they're walking or they're riding their bikes. It's not necessarily a walkable community. And we've got young kids that are leaving from trailer parks, trying to get to the rec center, trying to go grocery shopping for their parents who are working 2 jobs to stay here, and it's just not safe. So I fully support a transit study because I've kind of done my own study. And out of the needs, transportation, free public transportation was one of the top 4 things we were wanting to tackle as an alliance. So I think it's well worth looking at. I know as a Midway resident, I avoid the main street in Heber. I take all the side streets because we do have lots of traffic congestion here. And just imagine if we had like clean gas or electric vehicles. I think would not only reduce some of the pollution that we're starting to see some of the inversion coming up the canyon into this valley, it would reduce that, and it would certainly reduce some of the congestion. And I know a whole lot of people that would be really grateful for free public transit, so thank you.
And I think as we started this, one second, Doug, as we started this conversation with Park City and Mayor Johnson and I, that was one of the concerns, was this air quality issue as we continue, as we talk about doubling our population and cars and traffic and roads, and certainly in this study right now the scope is just to look at the, would this benefit our residents? We're not really, I mean, it's not going to be, yeah, it benefits Park City, let's go for it. It's going to be, does this benefit our residents in this valley? And certainly we could extend the scope of that to look into Utah County, but right now the funding and the scope of this study is just to look at that process, just because it's easy and it's paid for, and so it's just a place to start. But we'd certainly love for the county to join if they're interested, but the interlocal right now, we just hit sign between the cities. But Doug and then
Go ahead, he was first.
okay.
The planner in me says transit would be great, and I think it could be great. I'm concerned about Park City being involved in the study and what biases that will show. Maybe a very brief history. About 12 years ago, I think it was about that time, we had Park City's Public Works Director coming to the council and saying, we want to provide free transit down here. And they came a number of times to council meetings and proposed that. Shortly thereafter, we found out that Park City allowed Talisker Corp. To purchase a condo building in Wasatch County and count that towards Park City's affordable housing requirement. We were very upset about that. Then shortly after that, we found out that they had an ordinance that said, if you're a developer, you can count your affordable housing outside of Park City limits if it was on a free transit route. And we threw a fit about that. They did not take that off their ordinance for years until we were at a Kimball Junction meeting in the library, and they were publicly shamed with KPCW there and everything. And they called the next day, said, we're removing that off our ordinances. So I think the councils, the decision makers need to be very careful that this isn't going to be free. There's a cost to this, and it's going to be in educating the kids that come here. It's making affordable housing and workforce housing more attractive down here. And I would hope that we don't include Park City in preparing that study.
The study is being done by not Park City. I mean, it is an outside consultant.
But who's
doing
paying
it.
for it?
Wasn't it a-
Could I have my turn? I mean, I was next, right, Chairman? That's the question I wanted to bring up, a couple related ones, is that you said something about, well, let's see, we can't really look at Provo because Park City's mostly funding this. Them that pays the bucks directs a lot of what happens. We're paying a minor token. And when this was presented to our city council, my thought was, we're not being asked to pay hardly anything. Why wouldn't we jump on? I think they're looking more for Park City and Midway to endorse what they're doing. The study's being driven, from everything I'm seeing, from what benefits Park City to bring their low income over here. I want to know of those 30% jobs that are going over there, how many are living in moderate and low income housing provided by Wasatch County and Heber City. I was going to propose, if we have a study that benefits us, that we ought to put some money in it so it's ours and look at Provo. And I was facetiously thinking, but not so much maybe, that we ought to include Camas, have them kick in 1,000 so they're endorsing it. And, you know, we're trying in Heber we've been told we have all this commercial space and our developers don't seem to want to do anything with it. They just want to build houses. So we need commercial traffic. We need a bus to get Heber people over to our shopping malls, and we need a bus to take our low-income people over to live in Camas. So the study needs to be broader. It needs to be, what are the needs might it be between people in Camas that want to come over to Heber to shop, or on around the circle to Midway to ski, or whatever it is, okay? But I just think to do a study, mostly funded by Park City, that we throw in a token so it's our study, misses the point of what's good for our valley and for Heber and Midway and Wasatch County.
I think we need to be clear that the Park City money is not Park City money. A grant was provided for a transit study to be done in Summit County as well as multiple counties, and some of that grant money, there's $35,000 of that grant money left. And so it's not Park City's money. It wasn't provided by Park City taxpayers. It's a grant. And because that grant is open-ended, they haven't closed the studies, that money is still available. So it's a grant that has been provided, and it's not from Park City or Park City taxpayers.
But they didn't come, they're already doing transit to Camas, and now they're trying to do transit to here. Maybe they ought to have said, why don't we do a circle
Well, I think the bottom
Park City
line
and
is,
Camas
do
and
we want a
Heber and
study?
Midway, and so that everybody can be part of it, and down
I
to
think
Utah
everybody will,
County.
I think that they will include all of those.
That's what I'm encouraging.
Bob, question for you.
Yes.
Is there any way that MAG can run interference and kind of be the leader of the consultant, they report to you?
We can talk with Park City, but that's essentially what you basically do, right? Is to kind of be your transit advocates, I guess. And we would absolutely, for lack of a better term, ride shotgun on it, so to speak. We've got 5,000 in it, and UTA as well. And we've got a transit specialist in our office that has worked for UTA for years. We know transit, so I think we as MAG can definitely help you know, even if we're not running it, we absolutely would be integrally involved in the process and be not afraid to say, hey, something smells fishy here.
And to watch for bias. and
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
understand biases. I mean,
Right.
with the study, I mean, what's it hurt to find out, right? That's would be my personal opinion. But, you know, we would definitely be involved and want to help make sure things make sense, that they're using sound technique, they're using sound data, and just let the data say what it will say, right? And have it be an actual technical exercise, which is what I think everybody in the room really wants this to be. It's not a political exercise, but it's a technical exercise to see what are the true demands, where do people want, and for a transit system to work, it's got to go where people want to go, and take people from where they are to where they want to go, and that's what we would suggest this study does.
Lower moderate income is a real challenge all over the state. It's a challenge in our county, it's a challenge in our city. And I've been trying to put a lot of energy into it. But to me, I get way discouraged about doing much about it if all we're doing is building low and moderate income housing to be bused over to Park City workers to come here and live in it. It's just counterproductive. We have talked about in our meeting, our county meeting, how do we build housing for our school teachers, for our police force, for Heber, Midway, well, county and Heber's police and everything. These essential workers we have that we're here in almost every city council meeting, they can't afford to live here. Our chief wants them to be from the city, so they have a vested interest in the community involvement and all that, and yet he keeps telling us we can't afford it. But then we look at it, we talk about it in the moderate income housing board meetings and everything. How do we go ahead and build this? And how do we limit it legally, even to say this is for county and city people that work here? We can't. We've been told we can't. And so all we're doing is, the minute we make it easy, then we're going to have all the restaurants and hotels and everybody, low-income workers, coming over here filling up any effort we make. I get the point that if we're going to bus them over, then I'm not anxious to build it. It just is a big hole that never ends if they can keep having us help bring their workers over here to live. It's just, to me, a real frustration.
Has that happened in Camas, do you know, with the bus? Do you have any data
Well, I
to show
don't
that all
know.
these low-income people have moved to
They've
Camas?
apparently got one over there, but I think probably it's starting to
Or
drift
Salt
that
Lake. I
way
mean, they
too.
bus to Salt Lake too.
Well, I
so
doubt
think you can get
they're
low-income.
busing their low income to live in Salt Lake. Maybe they are. I don't know.
My suggestion would be, we're getting into the weeds before, carts before the horse right now, so let's move forward with the study. And again, I think, we'd be anxious to have the county participate in the study too, if they'd like to, but we certainly have, my city council was in favor of moving forward, so.
But what if the study shows
Let's wait and see what the
there's a
study
demand
shows.
for all those workers to come here, so there's a demand for the bus, but it's found that all they're going to do is bring them over here to live,
Well, the
then
study's gonna look
I don't
at
even want us to have the bus. I'd be against even having it if that's what's going to happen.
But what we're trying to see is the people that already live here.
Well,
do
but the
they
ones
want
that live
this?
here are working over there low income, most of them.
It's a free market and you can't stop people from living where they're going to live.
No, that's
And-
right. We don't have to
And if
provide
they're
them a
going to
bus.
live here and they're going to be traveling there, if we are able to provide some kind of service for the people who are living here, I don't care what income they are, what income level they are, if they're our citizens, we need to meet some needs. And we need to look at that.
Just maybe one point I would point out is, this is just a study, right? If we don't like the results of the study, we don't do it, right? It's pretty low financial investment. Hopefully we'll get some good technical information from it and then make decisions based off of that. And having more information is typically better than not having it. But again, we're here to serve you. We'll wait to hear from those partners that are involved in it, and we will try and make it happen the best we can for you. Is there any other questions or comments?
Who has a $35,000 grant? Was that given to Summit County?
It was given to Summit County, Summit County or Park City, I'm not
Was
sure.
it given-
Sean would know that,
Would
unfortunately.
that be transferred to Heber City or Wasatch County? So that it's an independent?
Technically,
No.
I think it would be difficult since it's a grant, but we
Right.
could definitely look into it.
I wouldn't.
We were told that the grant was specific to their study, and they didn't need to use all the money in the study that they did, so they have this leftover money and they can stretch it to here. I mean, again, I think, Matt, you made a great point. If you guys are the intermediaries and if you're watching for bias, I think that's the key. So, I mean, I suppose a study, you know,
Yeah.
I learned in statistics you can make numbers say anything you want, right? So
Sure.
there's a certain element of that, but I think for the most part, we're just trying to get information. I
Has
think
the
the study will
consultant's
get
been
us up.
hired that's going to do the study?
I believe they have a consultant under contract right now that they could just
Who's
continue
they?
on.
Have the-
Park City, I believe, and I don't know who the consultant is. But again, doesn't hurt to find out.
Right.
All right, if there's
Thank
no
you.
questions, thank you. We'll look forward to